My name is Tammy Chapman.
And what's your job?
I'm one of the team of the Paranormal Adventurers who does paranormal investigations on a continual basis in the Spanish Military Hospital. So now what we do is we bring people in and we invite them to come in. We'll provide you with the rooms. We'll put the equipment in the rooms. We'll bring the monitor out and watch the monitor. We put you in the room alone, and we are hoping that you will have your very own personal experience.
Do both.
We had our first experience with what someone would call the shadow, the black shadow. I've heard people talk about that many times. We had four women, and they spoke Spanish. And we always encourage people when they come in. We say to them, you know, you're coming in, if I were a ghost and I was hanging out for 400 years in this area, where would I be? Would I be in that dark room with someone with a piece of equipment going, is there someone here? Is there someone here? Or would I be across the street with a girl in the miniskirt who's had too many beers? I'd be across the street checking the girl out. So I always tell people when they come in, you need to be interesting. Be interesting, be engaging. Just as if you were having company or you were trying to entertain someone. And these girls really took it to heart. They spoke Spanish. In this room, in the ward room, they actually did the hokey pokey. And they spoke Spanish. And in the morning room, it actually got quiet. They had experience. In the morning room, there was nothing going on. So I went in and gave them a name. And I said, try this name and see if you can stir anything up. And of course, I heard them in there, and they were talking. And I waited a few minutes. I said, see if you can find out what he does for a living. And all four of them at the same time said, he's a priest. And of course, that was very typical of the people that come out of that room who say, you know, oh, I hear this name. We think, or they hear on the voice box, or they get the feeling that he's a priest. I've had people who've been in this room and come up with the name. So, and I tell you, when people come in, I don't tell them about anyone else's personal experiences at all. I want you to come in and have your personal experience. So, where you see taps and ghost hunters, they go into a house, they stay that night, they leave. They go into the next house, they stay that night, they leave. And they're listening to what people have had, and that's what they're looking for. But we've been in here for a year, and we're documenting what people who've never met each other are experiencing, and finding that they're having very similar experiences with similar names, similar people. We've had people I had a young girl in here one time, and it was our first, we hadn't even finished orienting with the room. We were just like, okay, this is what this room is, this is what this room is, in that room. And she was crying before we were done. She had had an experience, and she was not going any further. She was done. And on YouTube, we have 3 girls that were sitting in the morning room, and you can see one girl looking. One of them's been ghost hunting. She knew the K2 meters didn't vibrate, but she was hearing the sound, and you can see her looking. She's trying to figure out the sound when one of her friends says, is this supposed, because they'd never ghost hunted before. They says, is this supposed to be vibrating? She's like, no, no, and the girl tried to throw her the K2, and then they all run out. They didn't want to go any further in their experience. They're like, okay, we've had our personal experience, and we're done. And the 4 girls that spoke Spanish that all said priest, when they were in this room, they followed protocol. They were actually listening. We asked people to take their pictures, don't move the camera, take the consistent pictures, picture, 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 then move your camera, picture, 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 don't picture, picture, picture. Because you really don't know. You don't know where you're at. You don't know if there's a light there, or was there a reflection, or take a few in a row, so you can see if something changes. And they were following protocol. And I also say to people, when you think you're gathering something and you've caught something, while you're looking, like, oh my gosh, look what I caught. The next 3 things are happening and you're missing it. So have self-control, all right? Wait till the end, and sure enough, they did. But again, we're done. We're out here. We're discussing people's experiences. And one of them's scrolling through, and all of a sudden you hear her say, okay, and then you know. They've had an experience. And what was funny is we were out watching the monitor, and I saw the woman do like this. And it almost was like there was a spider web in front of her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you would just be like, not like this, or not like I'm hot. But then I was watching, it was just very peculiar behavior. And so it made me watch a little closer. And then I heard her say, man, is it hot in here? And I know cold can be just as an experience as hot can be. You really have to pay attention to those things. And I'd explain that to them. And the minute I heard her say that, of course, instead of all her friends coming to her and saying, are you okay? They all turned their equipment. She became the science experiment immediately. You know, they're like, oh, let's see what readings we can get. But the woman actually had to get up and leave the room. And she went outside, and she sat for a minute, and she regained her composure, and she came back in. Well, when they were doing the filming, and they were taking the pictures. When they were reviewing them out here, they actually, when, okay, the black shadow figure on the wall behind her. But because there were 4 women in that room, I couldn't really tell if someone, like if you were there and I took a picture, if your shadow was casting on her. So, come on guys. So, we went in and tried to duplicate it over and over and over, and we couldn't. But they had this black shadow figure, and you could see it on the wall. But what was interesting is that, like in the series of photos, and they were great, they didn't move the camera, they kept it. And at one point then, it was the black shadow figure, but it was only half a person. I was like, look, if we're casting a shadow, certainly we'd be casting a whole shadow, not just half a shadow. And the very last picture, the shadow had come out of the wall and was over her shoulder. So at that point, it still gives me a little bit of creeps to hear about it. So she had a very personal experience in that room. Again, that's what we like to do. We like for the people to come in, have a personal experience. We want to document room by room what people who didn't know each other's experiences are and see how they match up to each other. And it's amazing how people can go in this room and come up with a name. They can go in this room. In this room, there's always somebody who's being tugged on and crying. Okay, and they just don't want to go any further. And I guess because of the way they're being tugged, they believe it's a small young person. All right? And then, of course, one of the things I believe when you're doing that is empathy. All right? When you're empathetic, when you feel a little bit sorry, that just opens you up for a whole world of hurt. Only it doesn't really hurt, but it's just something that really, once you start to feel empathy for whatever it is that's going on, it really does seem to stir up the activity.